And welcome, sisters and brothers. Welcome again to our very special show on the first Tuesday night of every month as we gather here in Trinity Television Studio to bring to you a little more education and awareness on nonviolence begins with me. We've had a wonderful journey, and I'm sure you agree. You know, and I'm sure our people here, our sisters and brother here, agree with that, yes? Yes. We've had a wonderful journey, understanding a little more this nonviolence, not so good in the world today, but a call for all of us to live this way. Thank God, sisters and brothers, we have begun the journey. We probably never end the journey until we die, but anyway, it's going to be a long haul. But still, we've begun, and we are moving on this journey. Thank you for joining us, and please call your friends, because this is going to be an amazing talk tonight. And to begin our program, we have with us just a few members from our beautiful choir, and I ask you to stand, and we're going to sing our theme song, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace.
Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in light, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving to all men that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there is doubt, true faith in you.
Praise God. Make me a channel of your peace. Amen? Amen. Beautiful. Tonight, sisters and brothers, we have our beautiful sister Judy Peters here with us again tonight. Let's welcome her. And we thank our choir for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, choir. Now you, as good children, now you go back to your to your practice. Praise God. Sister,
Thank
please
you.
come and welcome.
Thank you very much. So good night, everyone.
Good night, sister.
To those who are listening, good night likewise. So we have had a little holiday,
Yes.
Easter holiday, right? And now we will begin with our monthly reflection on nonviolence. So what praying about it, what came to me was to start with the pledge. And so I am proposing that every month we will do a section on the pledge so that we can go through it. So tonight we will do the first part of the pledge, which I would like to read to you. To respect self and others. To respect myself, to affirm others, and to avoid uncaring criticism, hateful words, physical or emotional attacks, negative peer pressure, and self-destructive behavior, including abuse of alcohol and drugs. So that when you made your pledge, that's the first thing you pledge to do. Self-respect, respect for self, is not the same as self-esteem, even though there is a relationship. Self-respect is deeper than self-esteem. Self-esteem really is the concept I have of myself, the positive feelings and thoughts I have towards myself. It is the image that I have of myself, right? It's like a self-portrait. But self-respect is a conviction, a belief that I am innately good. You hear the difference? I am innately good. That I have somehow internalized that I am made in the image of God. I just don't say it, but I believe it. That ruah, the breath of God, that breath of God that made me who I am, that continues to be in me as a living being. That Holy Spirit who dwells in me makes all the difference in the world. Makes all the difference in the world. So in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 3, I loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with loving kindness. Now, as I've reflected on that, the word everlasting struck me. It's poetic, it's impactful, but it is a bit hard to wrap around, at least my brain, our brain, because so few things in the world are everlasting. So few things. We have no strong sense, no strong basis anymore, even when we look at marriage, no strong basis anymore to imagine something even as permanent as love going on forever. Imagining something that is unending. Then in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 17 to 19, and I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. So when we talk about self-respect, that self-respect, to me, must be grounded in that conviction that I am loved by God. And guess what? You weren't asked if you wanted to be loved. You weren't asked. You weren't asked. And that love is everlasting. It is out of the realization, the internalization of that sense. And it's more than a sense, you know. I don't know, but I think, you know, if we had anything called a spiritual DNA, that is the makeup of our DNA. And maybe there is. That is the makeup of our DNA. So that sense of self-respect comes from that. Comes from the fact that I cannot deny my innate goodness. I may not accept it. I may struggle to believe it. But even my disbelief, my non-acceptance cannot change it. Cannot change that love of God for each of us and for all people. To try to grasp this love of God for us is wide and it's long, as the reading says. It's high and it's deep. And as I reflected on that, I thought of being in the sea. Being in the sea. Because that sense of God's love has to envelop us. It embraces us. Now, when we are in the sea, we don't think of ourselves as being totally submerged by the entire sea. Why? Not because the sea is not embracing us, but because we are small and we are in only one part of the sea. So we think that the only water that is embracing me is what is around me, immediately around me. But just think of that. Just think of that. That's not really true. You are embraced, I am embraced by the entire ocean. But my tiny little self could only fit in one part of it. And I think that is how it is with us. Our tiny little minds can't grasp what Paul is trying to tell us. That this love of God, this depth of the love of God, the height, the breadth, we can't grasp it. We can't grasp it. And yet it is out of, my sense is it is out of this grasping, out of this knowing, out of this believing, out of this accepting, this original goodness that was pronounced about us in Genesis and affirmed in Genesis, that original goodness is God's love for us. But you know something? That goodness quickly gets destroyed, gets eroded in the violent setting of uncaring criticism, as the pledge begs you to avoid. It gets destroyed, tarnished in hateful words. That is what the pledge encourages you to avoid. It is a sad fact that we can lose our sense of our worth, our goodness, our self-respect and value in the settings and in relationships that we hoped and trusted would have led us closer to others and even to God. It gets our sense of self, our sense of even self-respect gets tainted, gets crushed in families where we are not valued or understood, where we are locked in roles and expectations that are not real. We get marred and bruised in situations where we are not prized as beloved children of God, where competition, even within families, within communities, within the organizations in which we work, destroy that trusting relationship, where sometimes pleasing others replaces authentic freedom, the freedom of the children of God. So this pledge, to live this pledge of self-respect, to live this pledge of respect for others, we consciously have to move beyond that pain that threatens that same self-respect and that respect for others. to the wisdom of Romans, Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 35. You shall separate us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble, or hardship, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or even the sword? Romans 8:35 speaks to all of the things in our families, in our relationship, in our communities, in our workplaces that cause us to fear, where fear even overwhelms the very faith that we have and then discourages our desire even to commit ourselves to live this nonviolent life. And I would say to you, the response to the pain and the hardships and the tragedies that we face and that we remember so very often, cannot, the only thing that could take it away from us is Christ's love. Christ's love that goes wherever life turns, wherever life turns. This everlasting, unending affection of our greatest understanding, our greatest shield and protection against anything that comes our way is that love of Christ. Is that love of Christ. Psalm 136, verse 2 says to us, His love endures forever. So I think when we encounter the things that would threaten that prized sense of ourself as beloved children of God, I would encourage us to make a mantra out of that little sentence in that psalm. His love endures forever. His love endures forever. That we remember that. Because I think when we read the pledge, we take the pledge and we try in all honesty to live it. And yet we confront on a daily basis things that are violent, things that are self-deprecating. I think we have to go back. We have to have something to fall back on. And that something is that love of Christ for us. And to remember His love endures forever. So I would like to just go through. Cooperate with me. I don't know what's going on. All right, well, what we wanted to do is just turn to our slides. And, okay, so that's the pledge. So let's move on to self-respect. So self-respect is born out of this personal conviction that I am innately good, as we are saying. It means knowing that I am unconditionally loved and accepting that truth as a fact. Nothing could change that. Self-respect is really about knowing that I am valued and valuable. Not as a thing, but as a child of God. Right? It really means, self-respect really means that of value in myself. It is setting and managing my personal boundaries. Because when I value myself, when I know my worth in God, there is a responsibility with that. And that responsibility is basically to protect myself from all kinds of abuses. That's one of the examples we have in Jesus. Not succumbing to abuse. If you had listened to the Lenten readings, especially the last week and coming up to Holy Week, even when they were jeering, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus refused to take that on. He said, "You said it. You said it. Nobody's going to make him a victim of circumstances. You said it." And there's a big lesson there for us. So setting boundaries. And you know, physical boundaries are hard enough to set. Emotional boundaries are even more difficult to set. Spiritual boundaries are even more difficult to set. What we allow to get inside of us. What we allow to control us. What we allow to take away that sense of self from us. That sense of our belovedness. What we allow to do that. Knowing my truth and speaking my truth. As a beloved child of God. Knowing that. Not being afraid to face your goodness, to acclaim your goodness, to live out of your goodness. Not being afraid to live out of that. And to speak that truth. To speak that truth. Self-respect is about following your passion. Knowing that you're called to do something. You're made for a purpose. And that purpose that you're made for all of us, no matter what age we are, is always, what I should say, teeming inside of us, is always bubbling inside of us, is always catapulting us to the next move. Always. So even when you thought you had done it all and you retire, there is something in you saying there is more, much more of you to give, much more to give. See some eyes going, some faces going, and you know that. And sometimes it is only after retirement that you really come to what God really wanted you to do. And all of those things that you did in your career life was just stepping stones to greater clarity. To greater clarity. Those of you who have grandchildren know that. Just think about how you treat your grandchildren now, having gone through your own children. Greater clarity. Greater love. Greater understanding. Much more empathy. Much more compassion. Right? The best grandmother is the best parent. Isn't that so? So following your passion. Having compassion and loving kindness towards yourself. You know, as I was creating the slides and I got to type in that one, I said, loving kindness. What it looks like in your life. Loving kindness towards you. What it looks like. Could you taste your loving kindness towards yourself? What's your loving kindness towards yourself? See, if we're not there, how could we have loving kindness towards other people? You have to know, you have to experience what loving kindness feels like, tastes like. I'm not joking. You don't taste only what you taste buds, you know. Having courage to use your own voice on your behalf. If you don't have courage to use your own voice on your behalf, don't try speaking for anybody else. Don't try speaking for anybody else. That self-respect we're talking about. To ask for help. This is one I'm learning. But to ask for help. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. When I was doing that, I remembered Bishop Gilly. Some of you may know him. He was the bishop first of Guyana, and then retired and came to live with us in Barbados. And I got to know him very well. And he was a big mentor of mine. I was a novice at the time. So I grew up with him, made vows and all those kinds of things. And then he came to a meeting at Emmaus many, many years after. And by that time, he was wearing a hearing aid. He was walking with a cane. And sometimes would miss his room. And I'm going down the corridor. We were at the same meeting. It was a meeting with the Antilles Episcopal Conference. And we were talking about mission. And I was going down the road, going down the corridor, and he's coming out of his bedroom. And I said, Bishop, would you like help? He said, sure, please. Please hold my hand. And because I don't quite know where I'm going. And that taught me a lesson. So when I was doing this slide, I thought of him. Because I remember consciously saying to myself, when he so generously accepted help, Julie, you have to learn this. You have to learn how to do this. I'm trying. I'm not there, but I'm trying. Respect means, managing your emotions, managing my emotions. I think sometime during Lent I saw the news, I can't remember which newspaper, that quoted Father Harvey as saying, either get your anger under control or manage your anger or work with it, or some kind of thing like that. I think it was manage your anger. Get a hold of it. Get a hold of it. But that managing of our emotions, that's self-regulating. That's important. That's important. Our emotions should help us become peacemakers. Our emotions should not help us to live violent lives. They should really help us to be peacemakers. And, that's one of the presentations I'm going to do later on, just only emotions, looking at emotions as a way of peacemaking. So I'm not going to talk about emotions tonight, apart from saying that we have to get hold of them. We have to manage them. And the way you manage them is to befriend them, right? To befriend it. If you befriend somebody, you don't think of managing them, right? If you befriend somebody and you get to know it, you get to know the person, you get to know what the person likes, what the person doesn't like, so you get to know what triggers this in you and what triggers that in you, then what do? You cooperate with it. You cooperate with it. Okay? So we're going to get there, hopefully, one day. Honoring your words. Honoring my words. I wonder if we just stop, and just think about how many words you spoke today. How many words you spoke today to how many persons? Which of those words were you really conscious of? No, let's just think. Which one of those words were you really conscious of? And more than just conscious of speaking it, but conscious of committing yourself to honoring it. We would speak far less. We would listen much more. So what about accountability to your own self about your words that you speak? Particularly if you look at it from the perspective of honoring it, honoring what you say. When you say, I love you to your child, to your grandchild, to somebody, it shouldn't be just something that flies out of your mouth. It shouldn't be something that is just glibly said. If we were to think of honoring that to whoever we said it to, just think of the difference it would make in terms of violence and peace. Just think of it. So honoring our words. Honoring. Now, let's talk about respect to others. Are there any questions before we move to respect for others?
Anybody want to say anything? You can use the microphone. No?
You're sitting there with those loving,
Yes,
loving-looking eyes, Interesting eyes and interested eyes.
Okay.
Any comments? Is there anything that you heard? So many things. But any one stands out to you? But you need it for those at home who are listening.
You made the comment about facing your goodness, and what hit me when you said it is letting your goodness be your face at the same time.
Wow. Yes. Imagine that if you allowed what is inside of you, that goodness, to be your face. To consciously wear that. Which means Mother Teresa comes to my mind, Saint Teresa of Calcutta comes to my mind, which means that peace begins with a smile. That's what she said. Peace begins with a smile. And that's part of the goodness we can wear. And that's not expensive. Right? It doesn't cost. Only the muscles to move. The muscles of the facial muscles to move. And only a thought of greeting somebody, meeting the goodness of that person. When you think about it, that should trigger a smile. It should trigger something. Please.
What was special for me is when you spoke about loving kindness toward yourself and getting a sense of that and a taste of that and being enveloped in that. And I found that notion just absolutely delightful.
And I like the word that you use because it's supposed to be delightful, right? If it is real and authentic, if it is authentic loving kindness, it should be delightful. It should be delightful. Yes, it should be delightful. Right? Good. So let's talk a little bit about, well, even before we go there, what are some of the things we can do, even this loving kindness towards ourselves? All of us carry all this negative script and things that come up and we say. So we say things like, I don't have time. I don't have the resources to do it. I wonder if you could change that. And instead of being, imprisoned by that and the limits of it, I wonder if you could think about reprioritizing the things we have to do. Starting with the resources that we have. I wonder if you can tell ourselves, I can begin with the resources that I have. What's about when we say things like, that makes sense? So I'm not even going to bother. It doesn't make sense. What could we say? How could we change that one and not get caught by it? Could we change it to, let me think about that differently? Let me see if thinking about it from another angle would help it make sense. I never thought, and I never told anybody I was going to be good at that. That's why I didn't even want to try. You see a fail? I wonder how we could change that. I've tried and I've learned from my failure. And now I have learned what I did that made it fail. I know what not to do. Isn't that a learning? To know what not to do? Yes. I'm always wrong. That's why I don't want to say anything. So how could we change that? Huh? How could we change that one? We say it so often. How could we change that? Anybody has some ideas? I'm always wrong. That's why I don't want to say anything.
Okay, always is a really general way. So you
Right.
can't say always wrong.
But we say it.
Maybe you were wrong this time, but there are other times that you were right too. So again, I guess perspective, look at it in that way, you know, and you could always find out like, why was I wrong this time, and make the corrections. So yeah, I'm not
Right.
always-
Or being
yeah,
wrong doesn't mean that I shut my mouth all the time.
Exactly. So
Yes. The fear of being wrong doesn't mean that I have to just sit there and say nothing.
I think part of it is being courageous enough, having the courage to step out there, and if you make the mistake, then you try again and you know that that's the mistake. But if you don't take the decision to step out there, then you'll just be silent, and that won't change anything.
Right, right. So you see the many ways that we sabotage ourselves from loving kindness towards us. Many ways in which we sabotage ourselves. And at the same time, we sabotage other people. I told you couldn't do it. You hear a lot of encouragement in that? Oh, right, no encouragement. It's wonderful that you tried. You know, it's wonderful that you tried. So, to respect others, be honest with people. I see you laughing. One is laughing out loud and all of you are smiling. What is this about? What is this being honest with people? Just what it means for you in your own life. And don't go too far, you know. What it means for you in your own house. With your spouses, with your children, in your workplace, with the person sitting in the desk next to you, with the person that you report to, or the people who report to you. Be honest. But you see, if we're not honest with ourselves, it's much more difficult to be honest with other people. But to respect people, we have to be honest with them. You know, just ask yourself a question. What would you be rather told? A lie or the truth? Even when the truth may upset you, just ask yourself. If somebody comes to you and says, what do you want me to tell you? A lie or the truth? What would be your choice? Yes. I mean, I hardly know anybody that was to tell me a lie. I hardly know. I mean, maybe I walk around in the wrong places, but I hardly have met somebody that will choose to tell me a lie. You know, I have clients that say to me, as hard as it is, tell me the truth. As hard as it is, people go to doctors. You know, I have heard members of my family, you know, my grandmother who had cancer, and then it was in remission for 10 years, and when she got back sick, she said, I'm going to the doctor and I want the truth. I want the truth. Because the truth sets us free. It sets us free, you know, knowing that, yes, the cancer came back. She could now make a decision. Do I want treatment or not? What do I want to do?
Back to something you said before with the loving kindness. I think sometimes, with respect to others, it's actually sometimes easier for us to be more honest with others
and we tend to be very hard on ourselves. So, I mean, I'm, looking at all these slides, and I'm just thinking and reflecting, and it's easier for me to be honest with my family, with my spouse, and not to be as honest with myself, because sometimes you hold yourself to a much harsher or higher standard, and you don't love yourself as much. And that love and kindness, I think, I'm seeing it pairing with the honesty to others and being
Right.
honest with yourself. Because if I'm not being honest with myself, am I really then being honest with others? Even though in my mind I think I am. But if I'm not doing it for myself, am I really doing it?
Yes, and you're right, because so many times I've heard people say, I can't tell them that, she will feel too hurt. My word, she will feel too hurt. But by not telling, we do a lot of damage. Because I've also heard people say, if only I had known, if only I was told. So we have to think about it and wait. Yes?
I think a big part of respecting others and being honest with people is how you phrase your communication.
Yeah, right.
And that is something that is that could lead to all sorts of, let's take an example. Your wife comes and asks you, you don't find my hair looking nice today. You're dead. You could only give one answer to that. Right? So I think that is a major part, and that is a platform for where you start.
Right. But actually, I'm not trying to get away from that. But the next time we present is going to be on communication, because your next pledge is that. But I really agree with you that, like, when you pose with that, you either have, if you have to really be honest and you don't like how the hair looks, you have to say, well, I really don't like how it looks, but if you are satisfied with it, it's your hair and you're going, oh, that's fine. So what's wrong? What's wrong with that? You know the thing in that? No, but you know something? You know something? Even though compliments and praise, they are good, and we need it. Ultimately, what really is meaningful comes from within us. Comes from within us. So even though people praise you and they compliment you, the question is this: am I satisfied? Self-satisfaction comes from within me. Because I'll meet 1 million people that may not like my hair. But if I'm comfortable with how it looks, it's fine. You don't have to like it. And you telling me you don't like it wouldn't move me to any place of victimhood. You know?
What resonates in my mind every time. I think what resonates in my mind every time I read "Be Honest," there is the echo that asks, what is the intent? Is it coming from a pure heart? And once I say yes to that, I can be honest.
Yes. So the motive, why you're doing it, is it to show up somebody or to empower somebody? Right. And if it is to show up, because it's belittling in a political way, right? It's really belittling and still dragging in a political way, which is much more conniving, much more deceitful, actually. But if I'm doing this to empower you, so that you have more information about yourself, about something that you could make a better decision, a different choice, then that's a whole different story. A whole different story. Okay? Good. Thanks. All right. Giving positive feedback. Especially those of you who have children. Those of you who have children. You know, as you try to live this non-violent life, that's a place I would encourage you to start. You know, encourage you to start. Because it's so hard for parents to get there. It's like we're always trying to catch them doing something wrong. So the feedback is always negative, you know. I was very happy a month ago. I'm doing parenting in Grenada, and as part of the evaluation, the parents, one parent after the other said, you know, I felt guilty in this class. But it was coming from a good place. He said, you know, and then one day one person just came and said, oh, sister, how do I move from, don't do that, stop doing that, boy, leave us, stop that. How do I get from there to, son, this is nice. What you're doing is really good. How do I get from, don't do that, stop doing that, you again, to there? You know, at the end of the day, if all you're here is stop doing that, you again, why you can't behave, why you can't do this, why you can't do that, you know, you feel bruised, eh? You feel bruised. Because none of that is soothing. None of that is really palatable, right? It's rough. Hmm?
It's violent.
Yes, it's violent. You need a good drink of water to take that. You needed to say something? Sure.
Good night. You said give positive feedback. I guess the word positive kind of, you know, threw me off because I guess feedback on the whole is good and it's not really what you say but how you say it. You could be saying something, giving negative feedback or,
Right.
but it's how you say it. So you're saying, you again, don't do this, come here, stop. You could say, no, what you are doing is wrong and I would like you to, but it's just how you say it.
Yes, I get where you're coming from, and I would see that as positive, eh? I don't see that as negative. I think negative is what really pulls us down and what discourages, you know? But to use the word wrong is not negative, because there are things that are right and there are things that are wrong. That's how it is. And some of them we can't change at all, you know? So, appreciating differences. Now, this is a hard one. And there are all kinds of differences. Differences of opinion, differences of skin color, differences of even tone of voice, differences of presentation style, differences of all kinds of things, you know? I once heard somebody say, I'm not going to that lecture. Is that lady giving a lecture? I don't like her voice. God. But, so imagine you can't transcend somebody's voice to listen to the content. If you get engaged in the content, you don't even hear the voice, you know. Let the content take you. You know? What you're more interested in. So just check yourselves on where you struggle, and maybe this week or this month, because it's until a month time you will have me back or somebody from the institute back, but just think about where you're having problems with that. What particular differences have you on the edge, teeter-tottering, nonviolence to violence, you know? Just really be honest with yourself, which is also part of loving kindness, eh? Be honest with yourself and just say what difficulty, what difference really gives me a great difficulty.
Well, I have a good little example to give because I have a daughter, an adopted daughter, and we're very different, very different. So I often criticize, you know, I'm learning so much from you tonight. But anyway, she's now doing a course in animal care. And part of it is that she has to grow worms, if you please, to feed chickens to find out whether that works better than feed. So we have a worm farm in our house, which I was horrified about. But anyway, all of these little worms are multiplying in this box, and she has to come now and take them all out of this box, one by one. The child spent on a whole day doing this worm business. You know, it's the next day I was in my prayer, and it suddenly came to me, oh my God, this child is so amazing that she could spend an entire day working with worms. I had such an awe for the child. She's not a child, she's a big woman. But I just saw things so differently. I had such an appreciation for who she is, the humility to be able to sit down and work with worms. I could not have done it myself. I said, I have so much to learn from this child. I know I got sent into my life.
You know, and thanks for sharing that. That's a wonderful and lovely, experience. But part of working with differences is having an openness to learn. You were open to learn something, to be just open to what she was doing. That you weren't close to it and say, well, no, these worms can't come in my house. Because if these worms wasn't in your house and it was in the garage, you would not have seen that or so much of it. You know, but just to be open to learn from the differences that we encounter. You know, to be curious, much more than you're critical. You know? I always tell parents who parent in adolescents, maybe the most important skill to deal with adolescence is a pique in your curiosity rather than control. To be curious. So why are you dating this Chinese girl? My family don't like Chinese. So tell me what you find interesting about the Chinese. Now, forgive me, I'm not picking on Chinese here. It just came out, right? As an example. Or tell me why you're doing this. You know, we've never done this, but that's interesting. So instead of saying, hey, not here. We never did that yet. You ain't coming and break no tradition here. You know, this closeness is to be curious. Is to be curious. Even be curious about why you're deciding to go to John's party and not Akel's party. When you and Akel are better friends. So tell me why you're choosing to do that. Be curious. When you're curious, you discover the values from which they operate in. But you shut them down by control. You never enter into their world. Please.
I think what you just said there relative to losing the underlying message and putting this mental attack against the speaker. This is a habit that we seem to have in this country, which we really need to work on, which is we become too subjective. And just right away we say, he has no moral authority to say this, and he should not be saying this because something happened 5, 10 years ago, whatever it is. And that is where a lot of things that are being said to us that make tremendous sense just is lost because of who said it. And that is something that we really need to work on as a country.
Thank you. Compliment and praise. Sorry, go ahead, please.
That's all right.
No, please.
With regards to appreciating differences, I think besides allowing children to pique their curiosity, as adults and as parents and somebody working in the healthcare professional and working with persons with disabilities, etc., as adults and parents, we need to expose children, I think, from an early age to persons with disabilities, with people who are just different from us, not just based on race, because I think it allows for children to develop a little more holistically and to be more open to various settings, various activities that they will engage when you're going through secondary school to college to life. It allows you to be a little bit more open and receptive to things that are different from you and your community.
You know, I'm sorry I'm not close to you. I would shake your hand on that because I really, really believe in that. For 12 years, I worked with street children. And one of the things that I did a couple of times and I encourage is that I really, apart from one boy, all the children I met were totally healthy. What if they would go to a hospital and visit sick children? Or go to, you know, Lady Ho Choi's home and see children with disability? It changes their perspective. So even as bad as their situation is, they realize that in certain parts of their life, they're very privileged. Very privileged. You know? And I think it makes a big difference.
Sisters, you were sharing there, one of the things that struck me was the connectivity between curiosity, being honest, and appreciating differences. Because a lot of time when we don't appreciate the differences is because of the lack of understanding.
Right.
One of the things that clicked with me is, you know, loud people aggravate me. but I don't necessarily go and say to them, you're being too loud, could you speak a little softer? The person might be speaking loudly because they have a hearing problem. So I actually need to be more curious, be honest with the person, express how I feel, and then I could better appreciate, okay, you're going to be talking loud around me all the time, I need to live with it, I need to, you know?
Yes, thank you. Right, yes, they don't know that they're loud. Okay, and sometimes it's not only the deaf ones, but if you have not only the people who are deaf, but if you live with an architect who is always out on the building site shouting to men on the 4th floor, ask his little 3-year-old daughter how that is when that tone is not toned down for a different context. It's the same story, right? Okay. So, time is up. Imagine that. We've been having fun. And I told Rhonda,
Because we want to continue. Same time, same place. Next month, first Tuesday of next month.
Great.
Just have a couple of minutes if you like to, 2 minutes literally, if you like to end off.
No, I can't end up. Yeah, I'm over. Well, I mean, I was going to get to some other slides. I don't know what number I'm at now. But all the same, next time we take up from where we stop, right? And you have a whole month to practice. It will be online, so you could go and, basically practice and that kind of thing and see where we go from here.
Praise God.
All right?
Thank you very much, sister.
Very welcome.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, sisters and brothers, for joining us tonight. And thank you all for being here. Indeed, it's wonderful. And to know that we could come back once a month to this same place to hear another beautiful talk to help us on our journey to nonviolence begins with me. All begins with me. And I just want to say that in this month of May, our nonviolence movement, we are working towards a forum for youth on the 27th, Saturday, the 27th of this month. So keep that in your prayer too. We are committed every month to have a particular function as well. Next month, June, we're going to be having a forum for business companies and continuing as we go along. We look at our Facebook page. We will be giving you the information. And, of course, you can always call in. Our numbers hopefully will come up on the screen. Our nonviolencett.org website or Facebook page, Nonviolence Begins With Me. You can check in on that, or you can call us on the telephone number that will come up on the screen. So thank you all very much for being here. And we thank God for this beautiful journey that we're on. As we heard tonight, it ain't no 100 yards dash, sister. There's a marathon we're on. You're going to take our whole life, So, but to begin is so important, to take the pledge, to begin and to understand. So those of you who haven't seen the pledge or you haven't been able to take it, I will give you a copy of it before you leave. And anyone at home would like the copy, get in touch with us. We will send it, and we also post it on our Facebook page and on our website. So God bless you all, and God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here, and thank you for Sister for your wonderful words to us tonight. God bless you all. Bye-bye. Thank you.